So before I wanted to start this off, I wanted to say that this was the stack of records I'm going to be talking about right here. And this is a stack of records that my grandparents gave me when they visited, and I haven't gotten a chance to look over all of them. So that might be in the future, but for now we're going to be talking about these. Alright, so today I just wanted to make a quick video on my record collection, just something I can pump out and get the wheels moving, start making stuff more frequently, or make stuff at all. And yeah, this is a record collection I've been keeping up with for about a year and a half now, just stuff I've been going to the record store, seeing albums I liked, being really interested in certain artists and getting the albums online, or just going to an antique store, finding whatever looks cool, or stuff that I remember from my childhood. So yeah, on to the video. Alright, so I'm going to be putting the albums up here. I was doing that in the version of this video that I filmed before, but the mic wasn't close enough, so I had to scrap it. You might not be able to see the full album because of the mic stand, but this first album is Songs of Hers by the band Hers. This album's more of like a mixtape type thing where they just put singles together that they were making at the time, put it in like a collection of sorts, and then just let it out there. They will later make an album that will be their debut album, so this doesn't really count as an album. It's just like a mixtape kind of collection of songs. And I'd first heard of Hers through Spotify's recommended, or just going through artists I like, looking through recommended artists, ended up finding these guys, and they ended up becoming one of my favorite bands to date. And this next album is that debut album by the band of Hers, The Invitation to Hers. This was their debut album that they made, I want to say around 2019. Yeah, 2019 sounds right. It has more of like a album structure where it's not just songs that they made thrown together. It's more just like with a coherent sound and sort of like a storyline, if you will. I like the collection of videos that came from this with stuff like Harvey and Under Wraps, while ultimately having to cut the video for She Needs Him short because the band wasn't able to film the last part due to their passing in a car crash in Arizona on tour. But this is one of those bands that I really wish I had gone and seen live, but I never really got the chance because I wasn't that able to go out to concerts back then, and sadly will not be able to see them. You will be missed. On to the next record. This album is Because You'll Never Be Free. Rex Orange County's first album that he worked on, I believe, while he was in high school studying music in England. It's a very nice album. I really enjoy it. It has this overall sort of reverby, echoey sound, which to me kind of just sounds like you're in a auditorium of sorts, and it's like just you in the auditorium. There's not that many people, and it just sounds a little melancholic at times with songs like No Love, and while having less of like that synthy, heavy feel that Rex Orange County would later go for. It's still a very good album. This is Rex Orange County's second full-length album, Apricot Princess. In this album, he really went more for that synth-heavy feel that he would later kind of refine a little bit, but it still sounds very good on this album. Fun thing to note about this album is Tyler, the creator, was a big fan of this album, and he later got Rex Orange County to do a lot of production and vocals for his album Flower Boy, and you can really hear it translate through the songs from this album onto that album, while giving that album still more of an individuality in a sense, rather than just making it sound like this. And Tyler has a much different style. It's still a fun thing to know. This next album is Prince's Purple Rain, and me and my friends one summer we hadn't really heard much Prince. We heard a lot about him, but we hadn't heard much at all except for the song Purple Rain, and so we just thought, why not start listening to the album. Then I ended up getting it on vinyl, and yeah, it just Prince still holds a very special place. It reminds me of that one summer where we all just kind of went out, did whatever, went to Walmart, and we just goofed around, and we were like, hey, let's listen to Purple Rain. When Doves Cry is the best song on this goddamn album. Fight. And this album is Mac DeMarco's debut album, 2. And Mac DeMarco I've come to know as a very love it or hate it kind of thing. You either really like the way his guitar sounds or his vocal performance and just the whole thing that kind of sprouted a bunch of different Mac DeMarco clones, or you don't like it, whether it is because of the clones or it's because of you don't like the way the guitar sounds, which is like a very twangy sort of sound that he puts to it. Whether it is the faster paced songs like stuff like Freaking Out the Neighborhood, or the slower stuff like on Still Together, but I've come to love it, and this album is my personal favorite of his, which that's what everyone says. But I've still come to like a lot of singles that have come off of stuff like Salad Days, This Old Dog, even the occasional moment off Here Comes the Cowboy, which I really didn't like all that much as an album, because it sort of delved into more of the Mac DeMarco weirdness that he has just locked in his head. I don't know what is wrong with him, but keep doing you, man. Keep doing you. That show you made? What even is that, dude? My brother loves it, so I can't say shit. Taking a sort of shift in tone, we're gonna move to Kid Cudi's Man on the Moon 2. I found this album at like a perfect kind of spot where I kind of remembered a lot of Kid Cudi songs that my brother had shown me before, or just stuff that kind of everyone knew. And I really enjoyed this album, whether it be the more production heavy, faster hitting songs like Maniac, or the kind of slower stuff like the intro to the album. I've always kind of enjoyed this album. It's a very good one to go back to, and you know it's going to be good if it's called Man on the Moon. I really don't have much to say about this album. I wish I did, because I love it a lot. Taking a sort of shift back, we're moving to Jim Croce's Greatest Hits. I don't have many Greatest Hits albums that I listen to in general, let alone on vinyl, but this Jim Croce album just really reminds me a lot of childhood, whether it be memories in the car on road trips or on the way home from the fair. This is the kind of album that my family would put on really any time that we were really bored in the car. And this is like one of my first memories of just enjoying music, whether it be the guitar or the vocals or either or of those two, just taking apart songs sort of and figuring out what I like and what I don't like about them. This next album is Idea by Bee Gees. Bee Gees is another one of those bands that my family had a greatest hits for, and they would put it on in the car on road trips. This album doesn't have so much of like the disco-y kind of feel that a lot of people get from Bee Gees. This is a lot more of like a softer production, more melancholic in tone. Songs like I've Gotta Get a Message to You from this album. And yeah, I haven't heard too much of this album specifically, but this has a lot of the songs that were on that greatest hits album that we used to listen to as a family, so it still kind of holds that place in my heart. That's the same kind of stuff as Jim Croce did. And yeah, on to the next record. And I'm gonna go get me some water because I can already tell my voice is getting frightful. And this album is a collection of hits by Paul Mariette, I believe, is a French composer. And this album is sort of like covering popular songs of the time through like an orchestra sound. And it's got a lot more. It's a very interesting one. This is one my grandparents gave me when they came and visited that I was very intrigued by. And it has stuff like Penny Lane from the Beatles and Something Stupid from Frank Sinatra, but done in like a very orchestral sound, but like sort of experimenting with that orchestral sound, giving it more of like a modern sound, like on the song, I don't speak French, so I might not get this right, Sols Allemande, where it has more of like a rock type thing while still keeping like an orchestral, what did it say, like our orchestral chambers, chamber music styles, whatever, but combining like that rock type beat to like an orchestral sound while not keeping it too orchestral, keeping it very modern but having a sort of spin on it. This is an album that I found was very interesting. If you're into music, into this era of music, I would really recommend giving this a listen. This album to me sounds very Disney, where it has more of like that calm, soothing background music kind of sound. This is one that I put on the background a lot when I'm doing something, whether it be editing or just playing a game. It's a very nice album to listen to, in my opinion. On to the next one. This record and the next record I would put in like this record head kind of section where it's like very, not the album itself, but how it's perceived as like a very pretentious, like, oh, you own a record player, you gotta play this music kind of thing. But this is Neutral Milk Hotel's In the Airplane Over the Sea, which kind of has like this folk sound to it, and it's just a very interesting album. I haven't heard this album a whole lot, but I felt it'd be fitting because it's a very record head kind of album to put in the video. But every time I have listened to this album, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And on to the next one. This album is the second and last to this sort of subsection of record head kind of albums, where this is Crimson King's album, In the Court of the Crimson King. The album kind of starts off with like this Black Sabbath-y kind of just in your face performance and like distorted vocals, and the instrumentals very just hard hitting, while the rest of the album kind of mellows out, having more of like this calmer sound to it, and then finishing up with like a grandiose kind of sound with The Court of the Crimson King. And this has about 5 songs on the album, but it still maintains like that 30-minute runtime, because each song is about like 6 to 8 minutes, with about 2 minutes of like actual song and the rest being like an ambient sort of sound or a solo that goes on for a long time, or just the band what sounds like fiddling with instruments. And I would really recommend, if you're going to listen to this album, listen to it. I really recommend, if you're going to listen to this album, listen through once without skipping, and then if you're going to listen to it from there on out, you can skip if you want. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But yeah, I really enjoy the sound of this album. I really like the stuff like on I Talk to the Wind, where it has like this very soft flute sound and just very calm and enjoyable. And then that wraps up the pretentious record. And the next record we have is Demon Days by Gorillaz. This album I kind of grew up with a lot. This and most of Gorillaz. It's just what I was listening to in between the stuff that my parents listened to and the stuff that I would end up listening to on my own. This is just some stuff that my brother showed me and would end up to be one of my favorite bands to date. And yeah, I really enjoy this record in particular, whether it be the stuff like White Light, or like a very punky, hard-hitting sound, or the stuff like November Has Come, R.I.P. MF Doom. And yeah, I don't have much to say about this record, except for I have a collection of Gorillaz CDs, and this is the only Gorillaz vinyl I have. And it's a picture disc. I wish it wasn't a picture disc, because my friends have had a lot of problems with picture disc before. I haven't had a problem with a picture disc until this one. The Prince one is a picture disc, and another one I will be showing on this is a picture disc, which, but those work fine. For some reason, this one in particular, my record player has a problem playing, especially on this side, side C. It skips a lot. You can go through the whole side in like maybe 5 minutes of about like 5 or 6 songs, but still a great album in my opinion. And yeah, on to the next. And this next one is the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 soundtrack. Me and my friend Eli went in the record store, found this, and we're like, we have to buy it just as like a joke, because it has a parody of Sonic as Michael Jackson on the front. Which is a little interesting thing to note is Michael Jackson did work on some of the Sonic the Hedgehog soundtracks. Looking back, but the stuff he worked on those soundtracks are very good in my opinion. Stuff like and it's just a record that I kind of keep as background music. It's something that you can play while you're talking to friends, that the words aren't going to like distract you, or you're not going to be focused on the instrumentals themselves. It's just funny, goofy Sonic noise. I ended up liking this album a lot more than I thought I would. This also has the Sonic 1 soundtrack at the very end on the record. Just something they want to throw in because. But yeah, I really enjoyed this record a lot. Sonic the Hedgehog. Also something to note is that the inside is a sort of extension of the cover, because that's what the inside looks like, that's what the cover looks like, and that's what the back looks like. So it's just Sonic as Michael Jackson. This record is Kill Bill and Rav's first collaborative record, New Moon, which this album came out, I want to say, around January of 2019. It brings me back to those times where I would go to community college and just play this in the background when I'm driving, when I'm editing for video projects at school, or for just in the computer lab, messing around before class, whether it be being on Discord with my friends or using the drawing tablets, whatever it be. This just brings me back sort of to that time, and this album really made me want to make music of my own, but right now it's just iffy. I can't really think about doing videos and music at the same time, because then I get going back and forth between the two and I never pick one to focus on. I bumped the mic. So right now I'm going to be working on videos, and I can work on music later if I want. This last subsection of records is going to be the AJJ section of records, because I have just so many records of this band. And the first one on this list is People Who Can Eat People Are the Luckiest People in the World. This album is a lot more folk / anti-folk in sound, where AJJ would be later known to be more like a hard-hitting punker sound. I keep saying hard-hitting, please help. Whether it be the faster paced songs like something like Rejoice, that's the opener of this album, or softer songs that would crescendo into more of like a grandiose sound would be stuff like a song dedicated to the memory of Stormy the Rabbit. I still enjoyed the sound throughout this whole album. It's very different to hear this sort of sound, and it's just something that I've always enjoyed. This has been one of those bands that I've been coming back and listening to for years and years. I don't have a lot to say about this record, but I'll say more on some of the later records. It's just something I can quickly get through. This lacks something I can say to quickly get through the last section of this video. And yeah, this next record is AJJ's Can't Maintain. This still holds up that very anti-folk sound, while differing here and there in songs like Backpack, Lovin' the Time of the Human Papillomavirus, HPV, which that song was the first song I'd ever heard from AJJ while I was in North Dakota with my brother. He just played it in the car, and he was like, hey, you might like this band. So I ended up going back to the house on the military base that I was visiting with my family at the time, and turned on his iTunes and just kind of delved into the catalog a little bit while I was playing Skyrim or Overwatch, while just hanging out there during the summer. And I really like in Can't Maintain some of the sounds that come from the final two closing tracks, stuff like Who Are You, which is about his father, and stuff like White Face, Black Eyes, where it's just a very more emotional sound to it. But yeah, this is one of the records I listen to a little bit less, just because they just have so many that are on my stand that I just go to first. But I still really enjoy this record. I'm glad I got a copy of it at the record store. I wasn't really expecting there to be that many records of this band, because it's not a very well-known band, in my opinion. This album is AJJ's Christmas Island. This album was more of a foot in the door, if you will, to more of like a punk sound that they'd end up going for a little bit in later records, where it just has a lot more of that punch to it, and while still having more of softer tones in songs like Coffin Dance or Your Dead Best Friend, I believe it's called, which breaks up the different parts. That's like the more hard-hitting, moving my hands a lot. This record right here is The Bible 2 by AJJ, which was their first record I kind of listened to again and again when I first found their music. It still has a lot more of that hard-hitting punk sound, while keeping some folk / anti-folk in there. Songs like Cody's Theme is very harder hitting, while songs like Junkie Church is a lot more just soft, I guess. Not soft, but not as punk sounding. And songs like Terrifier, where it has like that really fast guitar, versus songs like Small Red Boy, where it has these just slower sounding upright bass parts. And yeah, this album just really hit a lot with me off the bat. It's a very good introduction to their music. And I want to get this tattooed at some point. It's a neat little thing. Sounds cool. Also, something cool to note about this record is most records are just, it probably just looks just white to the camera, but most records are just black. This one is more of like a white pink tie-dye. And if you'll let me, Christmas Island looks like there's a lot better looking than just a plain black record. Those are some things I enjoy about the AJJ records, like the small touches like that. This record right here is AJJ's Lost Works record, entitled Ugly Spiral, from 2012 to 2016. This has a lot of alternative stuff from Christmas Island and The Bible 2, as well as a cover of Pink Floyd's The Final Cut, as well as just some rejected songs that didn't make it onto it, like Space and Time and I Miss You. I really like some of these alternative tracks, with stuff like Do Re Mi having this intro of the Heaven's Gate video, which kind of led me into investigating the Heaven's Gate cult a little bit. And they sampled a part of the video, the VHS tape that they filmed, called Planet Earth About to Be Recycled. The only way to escape is with us. Stuff like My Brain is a Human Body turns to brainbody.mp4, where it has like this really heavy distortion throughout the whole thing. Very experimental in a sense, and I really enjoy listening to it. If you like AJJ's music, I consider giving this B-Sides a listen to. This last record is AJJ's Good Luck Everybody. The album takes more of a political shift with songs like Normalization Blues and songs like Mega Guillotine. I'm not a big fan of political music, but AJJ kind of gets a little bit of a pass from me because the songs are still really good. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoy this album. This is the album I went and with my first concert I saw on tour, where they toured it up in Asheville, North Carolina a little bit. Alright, so I don't know what happened to the rest of the audio. It just kind of cut out, and the microphone at that point on the camera was out of battery, so there's really nothing I could do about that. I was pretty much just saying how I liked watching the tour. It was very neat to have like my first live show experience. But yeah, thanks for watching the video. Again, this is something I just kind of wanted to put out. Just something I can barrel my way into making videos again. And yeah, thanks for watching. Sorry for all the jump cuts. Anytime I do a take, I would mess up and then immediately do the take again. So it was kind of sporadic in the cuts. And yeah, thanks for watching. Sorry it was such a mess. Next one hopefully won't be.